Hello and welcome to episode 39 of The List Makers from The Doctor Who Show. I'm Dave.
And I'm Rob.
And this month our top 5 comes in from listener Suicidal Chicken. Thank you for sending this in. Please remember to send us in ideas to go into Turlo's How to Wrestle on. Our topic for this episode is top 5 non-Doctor Who monsters or races you'd like to see in the show. This, Rob, is pretty wild.
Dave, I've been thinking about it all month. I've been putting things on the list, scratching them off for various reasons. Maybe we'll get to that later on. I think I've got a good list. But as for snaps, which we always talk about beforehand, maybe one or maybe one.
Yeah, I can see one pretty possible one, but maybe not. Like you, Rob, and I'll talk about how I made my list later on in the episode, but like you, I was writing this and rewriting and scratching things out. Probably more changes to my list in the preparation than I've had for a very long time. It could go in all sorts of ways. But it's your month to go first, Rob, so why don't you make your list?
All right, Dave. I'm going to kick off at number 5 with The Thing from The Thing. And The Thing, for people who don't know it, is basically this shape-shifting horror of a thing which can assimilate animals or humans and then take on their appearance and hide in plain sight. It's quite a horrifying enemy, to the degree that you could, if you were lucky enough to get up close and you had a weapon and you cut it in half, you'd then just have two things running around. It's like a virus, really, and the kind of monster Doctor Who needs every now and then to be a tough opponent for the Doctor, as well as something that's simply bloody scary, and not in a quirky way or a camp way, but a really menacing, scare everyone way. So that's my number 5.
Nice.
In at number 4, I have the Alien from Alien. And I guess rather than the alien, you could call this one a xenomorph. I mean, everyone knows the creature here, as Alien was such a groundbreaking movie and there were so many spin-offs. I guess similar to The Thing, this is a bid to bring back real horror into Doctor Who, but it would be in such a different way to The Thing. In The Thing, the concept is you don't know who's been taken over, whereas in Alien, it's just a big honking alien right there, and there's no doubt about it. So the storylines would be totally different beasts, but the horror vibe, I think, would be the same.
Wow.
In at number 3, I've got Audrey 2 from The Little Shop of Horrors. Just so people don't think I'm a total gun Doctor Who maniac, let's take a man-eating plant from outer space who wants to conquer the world by propagating copies of itself and getting them out there, with musical numbers. Now, I think this one writes itself. RTD, are you listening? Imagine, Dave, if the news storyline went something like some influencers showed off their Audreys, and then everyone in the world wanted an Audrey, and then everyone got an Audrey, and suddenly we're knee-deep in this alien invasion before we knew it. With songs. And with songs coming into Doctor Who, as we know now, I think this is a no-brainer, Dave.
Okay.
In at number 2, I've got elves, and this can be from many films and many stories. Elves, Dave, and it's a bit of a left field one, I know. Could you do a Doctor Who where he goes to a medieval sort of fantasy planet where you have elves and dwarves and hobbits and things? I think you could. But I'm also thinking of elves here in the sci-fi sense, as they appear in something like Warhammer 40k, which is going to be a big TV series with Henry Cavill in years from now, where they're known as the Eldar, and they're a super advanced spacefaring race. I think something like that, which plays with elvish looks and elvish ideas, but is very sci-fi, and it's not just guys dressed in green capes with bows and arrows. I think that might work better for Doctor Who.
Your number 1.
My number 1, Dave, are the extra-dimensional creatures from The Mist. And I'm back into horror here, and I do realise that. It means 4 of my 5 picks have been horror, but whatever. Here, unlike the other creatures, is something which is largely unseen, because unseen creatures will always be the most terrifying. So that's why I've got them here at number 1. And I think that's the best way to do these sort of Lovecraftian Cthulhu type monsters. you just terrify the audience without really showing them much. Maybe some sort of grotesque tentacle from time to time, but never, Dave, the whole monster. I think Lovecraft type stuff is actually really ripe for the picking in Doctor Who. I'm surprised it hasn't been really done properly. And that's my list. Any snaps?
No snaps.
Oh, wow. Okay.
One was on my consideration. One was on my long list.
Yeah.
But you and I focused on very different aspects of this question. And we will discuss that in a moment. But first I will build my list.
Hit me.
Number 5 of non-Doctor Who monsters or races I would like to see in Doctor Who. I've got the tripods or the masters from the tripods.
Yeah.
I initially was thinking about the Martians from the War of the Worlds, but I thought, the nerdies being like, well, the other races come from Mars. Where would they come from? And I thought, no, that wouldn't work. And then I thought, they're perfect in a turn of the 19th century story, but would they work in Doctor Who, just these things lumbering around? And I thought, well, what about the tripods, though?
Yeah.
Because the tripods have got that little bit of extra dimension. Yes, you've got that wonderful visual of the war machines, the tripods strolling across the Earth's landscape, and that's a great visual. But you've also got the way they control people, the way they control society. But then when you go inside their cities, you've actually got the masters, that alien race, that monster, if you like, that is running the whole show. And there's a whole different thing going on there. So I thought there's enough dimensions there. I could see a really gripping story with the tripods.
Yeah, good shout.
Number 4, I am going into Babylon 5's universe and taking Doctor Who to Centauri Prime to meet the Centauri. I'm doing this because they are such an entertaining race. I'm doing this because that the visuals, the way they wear their hair, the way they wear their clothes, the way their architecture is, the way their guards dress, the way their spaceships look, it's all so wonderful. I think they're the most interesting and entertaining alien race to come out of Babylon 5. I just want the accents, Mr. Gatwa, I just want that in there. And again,
Doctor, my good and dear friend.
Good and dear friend, yes. That would be so, so wonderful. And I can see that interaction going. I can see the sort of plot you'd have in there. And I think that dynamic that is interesting and thoughtful, but also really fun, would work really, really well. Mm-hmm. Maybe you even go into Centauri genitalia. They did in Babylon 5. If any doctor's going to go there, it's Ncuti Gatwa's. So,
true.
maybe they play poker. We'll see.
Yes.
Number 3, I am going with the Ferengi from Star Trek The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine. And particularly the Deep Space Nine iteration of the Ferengi, where they are those arch corporatist mercantile capitalists. And I think that Doctor Who could have a lot of real fun with a race like that, who again are a very entertaining race. They're done properly, you're laughing with them, not at them. Done badly, like some of their earlier Next Gen appearances, you are laughing at them. But done well, when you get those Armin Shimmerman type characters, particularly, they're a really entertaining race. You can do a bit of messaging, you can do some stuff on Ferenginar where there's like 47 different words for different types of rain or whatever it is. You've got the rules of acquisition. I think Doctor Who would have a lot of fun with the Ferengi.
Yeah.
Speaking of having fun,
yes,
I want the Doctor to meet the Vogons.
Oh, wow.
They are, of course, from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. We know that RTD's going for a very sort of family-friendly, fun kind of vibe with his new story, and why wouldn't you then just have the Vogons going around doing a bit of shouting, resistance is useless, reading their terrible poetry at you, making just wanting to destroy the Earth to make way for a hyperspace bypass. There's again, you could have a really family-friendly, fun adventure with the Vogons. I think that would be a really cool race. Monster, you could argue to see in there.
Yeah, and such a nice tie into Doctor Who via Douglas Adams writing it, via Peter Davison being in the TV series and all that stuff.
All of that stuff, absolutely. Number 1, I thought, what's a race that I absolutely love and would be really, really wonderful to see? And I've gone with the founders from Deep Space Nine, who were the changelings who run most of the Gamma Quadrant before we found our way there through the wormhole, a race that declared war on the Federation and the whole Alpha Quadrant, and they almost won. The combined might of the Founders and their servants, the Jem'Hadar, almost took out the Romulan, Klingon, and Federation groups combined. You've got that whole wonderful changeling ability where you're never quite sure who you can trust. And some of the best episodes with the Founders are those ones where there was just one Founder, but you didn't know who it was or what they were doing. And they're really spooky and they're really chilling. And I think that as much as I've had some really fun alien races on this list, having something that's really scary and chilling and spooky would make a really good episode. I could see this as the double episode at the end of a season where you've got a big sort of scary race in there. And again, whose motivations are that we just want to be safe. Because the Founders, because they were changelings, everyone was scared of them and they were oppressed. Then they said, right, the only way to be safe is to oppress everybody else and bring order to the galaxy. And that's what they went out to do. And I think that's a really interesting concept. So that's my list.
Interesting, Dave. When you're talking about those guys there at the end, I was thinking for a moment they sounded a bit Vorlonish, because I've only watched a bit of season 1 of Deep Space Nine. I mean, I have the whole thing on DVD waiting for me to watch the thing, but I'm not familiar with them, and they seemed Vorlonish from Babylon 5, just from the way you describe them, their power.
Yes, no, that's a pretty good analogy, actually. They look different, but that sense of just being incredibly intimidating and powerful, and like the Shadows, all these different races have to come together to defeat them is really good. So they're the sort of a big one. Now, Rob, we had no snaps. Unusual for us.
Yeah, I thought we might have, got one, perhaps, if you had gone with something like, the alien from Alien.
That was the one that was on my longer list. I could have had, yeah.
There you go. Yeah, so I was close at least.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I said we've clearly locked onto different words in this, because what Suicidal Chicken, hello Mark by the way, what Suicidal Chicken did say was non-Doctor Who monsters stroke races. Now you've really latched on, I think, to monsters. I've really latched on to races.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I've also latched onto, as I mentioned a few times in my piece there, the horror element, which is something I think Doctor Who does best. I wouldn't go as far to say Doctor Who is a horror story, but I think Doctor Who does really well when it does horror, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good theme. I could definitely see it. And it's interesting because, as I say, I had the Xenomorphs from Alien on my list. I was considering, and probably at one time it was on the list before it got scratched out. And I was just sitting there thinking, can I see the 15th Doctor and Millie fighting an alien? And I just thought, it's just doesn't quite fit. It's just a little bit too horrific. Certainly, I think, for RTD's Doctor Who. So if we were to do ones that I'd just love to see without any sort of constraint, my list probably would have looked a bit more like yours. I was really latching on to, can I see Ncuti Gatwa in a story with this one? And that's where I'm like, Ncuti Gatwa with a Centauri, bring it on. Ncuti Gatwa with a Vogan, bring it on.
Yeah.
But my list is topped and tailed with the Tripods and the Founders, who are much scarier and nastier and darker. And I think they're the ones that lean a bit more towards what you've done.
Whereas I was thinking of Doctor Who in a more general sense. I mean, my Audrey 2 pick from Little Shop of Horrors, I think that could fit in very well with the RTD era. Whereas, the Alien, the Xenomorph, I think of the Capaldi era, I think of an episode like Oxygen. What if the Xenomorph was running around that ship with that lighting and that vibe with Capaldi? I think that could work completely, so... Yeah, in a broader sense, I could see these working. Not all of them with Ncuti Gatwa, though. No, not at all.
No.
Maybe the Elves one would work with Ncuti Gatwa.
Yeah, look, I think that one definitely would. I think that was a really, really good pick. A couple of runners-up from me, Rob.
Yes.
The Vampires from Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah.
The Sand from the Blake 7 episode Sand, which doesn't do anything but slowly creeps around and sucks the life out of you.
Yeah.
And the Pod People from the various different iterations of Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
It's funny you should say that. That was one of mine. And the reason I didn't go with it was because The Thing from The Thing steals people's look and all of that. And I thought, and also Zygons are like an example of this anyway. So is it that interesting? I almost tossed out The Thing for that reason. But I certainly wasn't going to put Invasion of the Body Snatchers in there. I also thought of things like, just when you're spitballing, it's like, how about the Terminator? And then I'm like, they're kind of like Cybermen in a way. I know they're not organic like a Cyberman, but they're in that sort of area. So I cut myself off as I went down a few back alleys on this and just thought, Doctor Who already sort of does this in a way. So I sort of stopped there. Whereas some other areas, maybe like the elves or like the Lovecraftian stuff, Doctor Who hasn't done. So I got very excited about those picks when I was making the list.
Yeah, I crossed the Body Snatchers off for more or less the same reason you did. I just thought, Doctor Who's done this, whether it's the Zygons or the android invasion, we've sort of gone down that path. Again, when I was thinking about the Borg from Star Trek, I thought, the Cybermen have kind of done it, particularly the Mondasian Cybermen. I thought about the Romulans from Star Trek, and as much as they're a really cool race in Star Trek, and I love a lot of those Romulan episodes, I just thought they're a very sort of space opera, Star Trek type villain. Would they really work with the Doctor? And I didn't think they would. I was really trying to get the aliens from Roswell in there, but I just think they're so specific to their show that it just wouldn't quite work. So yeah, there were lots where, if it was just listing 5 cool aliens, that's easy. But 5 cool aliens that I can somehow massage into Doctor Who, that proved to be a lot harder. And this was one, and I think you said the same, where the list just changed so much over so many iterations.
Yeah, mine did for sure. But I had a lot of fun doing it. I mean, sometimes lists just come off the pen, so to speak, very easily, and you're happy. And then sometimes you do a lot of work on them, but you're equally happy. And this was the latter for me this time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was for me as well. I'm really happy with the list. And the sad part is that I would love to see these episodes made. And I think we're not going to, if for nothing else, because of the rights. Although, look, I'm sure that if RTD wrote to JMS and said, I want to use your Centauri or any of your races, frankly, in Doctor Who, JMS would say, absolutely. JMS would then probably look at his lawyer and they'll go into the whole convoluted thing of who actually owns what in Babylon 5 now, and it would all become a mess pretty fast. The Vogons, though, the Adams estate would let RTD use the Vogons, surely?
Oh, I reckon they would.
I reckon they would. So maybe there's a couple. Not sure we're going to get the alien into Doctor Who. Not sure the rights are there. Anyway, that's been fun. Thank you to Suicidal Chicken for sending that one in. We will now move to our Hat of Rassilon. Mm-hmm. And we have another from a listener. From Dylan Mooney, we have top 5 classic Who season openers.
Oh, wonderful.
Well, there's only 26 options, so what are there's a mathematical probability of a snap there.
Yeah.
But we will find all that out next month when we will make some more lists. Till then, I've been Dave.
And I've been Rob.
Keep listening to our hot takes. Come be back for a monthly episode, and we'll make some more lists soon.
We will. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.